Hello and welcome to another Wheels Boy quick review. For this video, we have come to the beautiful outskirts of Beijing to give you our first look at this, the XPeng P5, the third model from the Chinese EV startup and arguably their most important car yet. Let's get started.
The P5 is arguably just as important for the global auto market as it is for XPeng. With this car, XPeng will be the first company to put LiDAR technology in the hands of consumers, and at a price point that many people can actually afford.
Let's start with the exterior styling as we usually do. Now, when I first saw this car at its debut, I'll be honest, I wasn't blown away. That's partially because I thought the P7 was a truly beautiful vehicle and one that was very unique. This one struck me as looking more like a traditional sedan, and it does, but now that I've had a little more time to look at it, I really do like it, particularly in this nice pearl color. It does retain some of the interesting styling cues of the P7, including the light strip here in the middle. But one thing I like that it adds is this headlight unit here, which, if you look closely, is an X shape across the front. Very nice, obviously echoing the XPeng badge here. Overall, I think a very good looking little sedan. Now, the big news on the P5, of course here on the front end especially, is this LiDAR system. This is the first Chinese vehicle to feature a LiDAR system. It's as part of its semi-autonomous or autonomous driving package. This particular car is equipped with this because it is a higher trim level. There'll be 6 trim levels for this car, with prices ranging from $25,000 to $36,000. The top 2 trim levels will have the LiDAR system. Now, the LiDAR system will, of course, allow for a more accurate and safer autonomous driving system, which is always the goal. Unfortunately, I have to let you know now, this car, while it has the hardware component of that, it does not yet have the latest software upgrade. That should come out pretty soon, and we're hoping to give you a full review of XPilot 3.5 with LiDAR within the next few months or so. The profile of the P5 isn't quite so dramatic as that of the P7 with its extremely sloping roofline, but it is quite handsome. I also think this more traditional roofline is going to pay dividends when it comes to interior space, but we'll get to that in a moment. One of my favorite angles of the car, much like that of the P7, is the rear here. One thing I want to point out is that we have a nice echo of the X shape from the front headlight. Now, as I mentioned before, we have been able to see the exterior styling on the P5, but this is our first chance to sit inside and really experience the interior. And I have to say, I'm quite impressed. I guess I'm not surprised because I really liked the interior of the P7, but I'm even more impressed by that of the P5 because it is a lower price point, but the material quality is quite nice. Soft touch materials, absolutely everywhere that I can find a very comfortable place to be. Now, this is obviously a top spec model, and I'd be very curious to check out a more entry-level version to see how that one compares, but the one I'm in right now, very nice. Now here in the center console, we have, I believe, the same around 15-inch screen that we have in the P7, same size-wise. Very impressive. The UI, as is the case with other XPeng models that I've used, is very good, very quick and snappy. Voice controls also, I would argue, probably the best available in the industry right now. We also, of course, have the instrument cluster here in the center as opposed to having all of your functions here, which is something that I appreciate when I'm driving. In terms of useful space, there is plenty of it with 2 cup holders right here, as well as an area here in the center console with a very convenient wireless charging pad. We also, of course, have a center console cubby here with 2 USB ports for charging, and, quite interesting, down here we have a kind of a perfume section here with 3 different scents that you can choose from. I've smelled all of them. They're all very, very nice. I mentioned before that this car's 3-box design, the more traditional 3-box design, would probably solve a lot of problems when it came to interior space, and that was correct. In fact, it solves what is arguably my biggest problem with the P7, which is packaging. That car is very nice to drive, and the exterior is pretty big, but the interior feels a little bit tighter than I think it should. Not so with the P5. We have plenty of both leg and headroom back here, much more than that of the P7. We also have, of course, 2 USB ports down here between the seats, and, most interestingly, on this high-spec version, a little surprise here between the seats. a refrigerator. Those of you who paid attention to our previous coverage of the P5 will know that it has a couple of other tricks up its sleeve. Let's give it a look. That's right, today, after a long wait, we finally get to experience the movie theater mode in the XPeng P5, including the optional projector here between the rear seats, the 42-inch roll-down screen, and this nice soft air mattress. I gotta say, I enjoy it quite a bit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna watch my movie. We can't forget, of course, to check out rear cargo space. Hit our little concealed opening button here. At 450 liters, it is quite capacious, and I would say big enough to fit all the stuff you need for that movie theater mode that you just saw. Before I start talking about the driving dynamics of this car, I'll talk a little bit about some important information, starting with the fact that this car is built on the same platform as the XPeng G3. That means it is a front-wheel drive only car versus the P7 platform, which is rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, depending on whether you have the single motor or the dual motor version. This car is single motor only, front-mounted of course, and it makes 177 kilowatts and 310 newton meters of torque. That's about 237 horsepower and 230 pound-feet. The official 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time is 7.5 seconds, but this being an electric car, it certainly feels quicker than that off the line. So power and acceleration are more than adequate for daily use. How about the chassis? Well, it's front-wheel drive, as I mentioned, McPherson struts up front, torsion beam in the rear. It is not as sporty as the P7, much as you would expect. This is definitely a car that leans more towards comfort. In that respect, I think you could most easily picture this as kind of XPeng's attempt at creating a all-electric Toyota Camry. That means it is a useful family sedan with plenty of interior space, quick enough for daily use, but definitely leans more towards comfort, not a rear-wheel drive sports sedan like the P7. As such, the driving experience is very comfortable. A torsion beam means that it does have a little bit of a wallow over large bumps, especially at higher speeds, but the car never feels particularly unsettled at any speed. Front-wheel drive, there's not a lot of steering feel, but there is a nice weight to the steering. The chassis itself does feel tight. I would say tighter, for example, than the previously mentioned Toyota Camry. The P5 comes with 3 battery pack options, ranging from 55.9 to 66.2, all the way up to 71.4 kilowatt hours. The ranges for each of those are 460, 550, and 600 kilometers NEDC, respectively. I've spent a lot of time behind the wheel of the P5 driving on highways as we commute between shooting locations for this video, and the entire time, well, it's been kind of a tease because I wanted to turn on the NGP and use the XPilot 3.5 hardware. However, as I mentioned before, the hardware component is ready, but the software component will not be available till later this year when they have an OTA upgrade. When it does upgrade, it should be able to use the LiDAR to create a safer, more effective semi-autonomous driving system. I, for one, am very excited to see how that works in real life. I have already used the XPilot 3.0 with the P7 and was left pretty impressed by that, so I have high expectations.
XPeng says the P5 has been designed inside and out to fit the needs of modern Chinese consumers, including performance that makes it ideal for use in urban environments. Based on this test drive, we'd say they're right about that, and the P5 will likely be a real volume seller for the company.
As we wrap up today's video, you can get a look at some of the other colors available on the XPeng P5. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to stay tuned so you can catch our more in-depth review of the car later this year, particularly the NGP Navigation Guided Pilot and XPilot 3.5 semi-autonomous driving system, the one that uses the LiDAR tech on the XPeng P5. As always, check us out on Facebook and Instagram, links in the description, and like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching.